The Puma Deviate Nitro 3, a shoe that was on many reviewers' best of lists and at the top of quite a few of them last year, and really a fan favorite across the board. But with the third version, has Puma continued that, or have they done something else altogether? Technically, this is an initial impressions video. However, it's labeled final impressions because that's what it's going to be. So that should tell you how this review is going to go. And it's a bit unfortunate because, as I said in the intro, the Deviate Nitro 2 was a fan favorite across the board. It made the best of list for a lot of reviewers last year, and I was very excited about this new version. I've never run in a Deviate Nitro. I didn't run in the 1 or 2, and I held off last year because I wanted to run in the 3 fresh when it came out and really experience that shoe during its release. So I've been waiting months to get this shoe, and in that time, I have been running in the Puma Velocity Nitro 3, which I love. Ton of content on this channel about that, and I expected more of the same at the Deviate Nitro 3. But unfortunately, that's not what I got. And let's start with the specs of this shoe. Now, according to Puma and a few other sources, we have 39 mil of foam in the heel, 29 mil of foam in the forefoot, giving you a 10 mil drop. Wearing my pair of these, I get 9.3 ounces or 262 grams. Again, that's the pair I bought. And the weight is sort of around that for all the places that I saw quoted. Now, the Deviate Nitro 2 had 37, 29, and a 8 mil drop. Some people are saying it was a 6 mil drop. I will say the drop in this shoe does feel 10-ish. It's definitely not 6, so I would say the drop in the shoe is probably around 8 to 10. But I don't know why finding specs on this shoe have been so difficult because they're all over the map. So that's a little bit of a red flag. Moving to the midsole of this shoe, we still do have a dual foam setup. We do have Nitro Elite foam under the foot, as you can see here in the forefoot, and runs to the heel. And we do have Nitro foam in the heel, which now runs into the forefoot. I will talk about the chemistry of these two foams in a bit because there's a lot to talk about there, but I know one of the changes in this shoe from the Deviate Nitro 2 is that the Nitro foam comes into the forefoot much more considerably than it did in the 2. I believe it did come a little bit into the forefoot in the 2, but nothing like it does here. The Nitro foam is truly acting like a carrier foam now in this shoe, and it makes this shoe, I think, very stiff. Additionally, there is a carbon-infused heel-to-toe plate in this shoe, which is stiffer than I expected it to be, especially in the midfoot to heel, though it's a little softer in the forefoot because it is actually a forked plate. There's a smaller piece on the lateral side, a bigger piece on the medial side, which is there to kind of soften the initial foot strike, which, again, doesn't really work. But the midsole in this shoe has a lot going on, but I will say that it is also fairly traditional in the sense of shoes we've been seeing over the past couple of years. There's nothing revolutionary in here. The geometry, the way the foams are stacked with a carbon fiber plate or carbon infused plate, there's nothing crazy going on in this shoe. It's not like a Mizuno shoe where there's all sorts of new experimental geometries and foams and plate dynamics. This is a fairly traditional makeup, which should ride fairly traditional, but unfortunately, this midsole just does not perform. And moving to the outsole of this shoe, I'm going to say initially I was quite excited about this outsole because I've had a really good experience with Puma Grip rubber on the Velocity Nitro 3. However, I'm going to say that the pattern, the way it flexes in this shoe, which is odd because there isn't a lot of flex in this shoe, is good, but the actual tread pattern of this shoe is actually very slippy. On wet concrete, especially like sidewalks, this shoe is actually quite slippery and it's very squeaky. It's almost like a court shoe on a basketball court or something. I've never had a shoe feel like that where it feels like I'm kind of on ice on wet concrete, which is something we all run on. So while this looks like it should work really well, I'm finding this outsole pattern and this outsole rubber setup does not work at all. Moving back to the upper on this shoe, I'm going to say overall the fit, finish, and the build quality of this shoe is exceptional. Asics used to be my gold standard for build quality in running shoes, but I think Puma has really taken it to another level. This is a beautifully built shoe. Unfortunately, that's kind of the last compliment I can really give this shoe. Now, going over this upper and talking about the way it fits on the foot, I'm going to say this is very much a performance fit, which means it's somewhere between a loose and plush training fit and a very sort of lockdown, harsh race fit. This is closer to the race fit, but it's exactly how I want a shoe like this, which is a performance trainer, to fit. Very tight in the midfoot, very low volume in the forefoot area, with a heel that gives me good lockdown, though I do see there will be problems for some people in the heel of the shoe. I'll come back to that in a moment. I went true to size in this shoe. However, my foot, which is a US men's size 9, is on the small end of my size. So sometimes I can actually fit in a US 8.5. And the fit I get in this shoe is perfect for what I want in a performance trainer, which means the end of my toes are about 5 millimeters, or maybe a little bit less than 1/4 inch from the end of the shoe. Very, very tight. But since the lockdown is so good for me in this shoe, I'm not getting any kind of foot slip in this shoe. So it actually fits how it should, kind of ideal. And moving back to the heel of this shoe, this is where I think it's going to be problematic for some people. Now, I know the Deviate Nitro series has a bit of a history with Achilles problems for a lot of runners, whether it's blisters or pinching or other Achilles issues. And I think they're trying to alleviate in this shoe, but I don't know how successful that's going to be. There is a fairly traditional and stout heel counter on the lower end of the heel area here. I believe it's actually a TPU heel clip back here. Then there's this plastic thing with the shark fin on it that is a transition from that stout heel counter to a very unstructured, very basically nothing right where the Achilles flare is. Now, two things. This weird silver piece with the weird shark fin right here is a weird design quirk that doesn't make any sense. It looks kind of ugly, actually. Engineering wise, I believe this is here to transition from the stout heel counter to the nothing heel counter, basically, but it should have been internal in the shoe. There's no reason to have this plastic thing in the back of the shoe with this weird shark fin, which no one's going to use that as a pull tab. So this is a weird mistake in this upper. But what is actually happening here is there actually isn't a very deep pocket here. There is some padding around the ankle collar at the top of the Achilles, but there's not a very deep pocket here. So I can see there's going to be some heel slip issues in this shoe. Now, when I lace the shoe, I actually use all of the eyelets. So I'm not getting any heel slip, and I'm usually the type of runner who has a heel shape that doesn't give me heel slip problems, but I can see there's going to be some problems for heel slip in this shoe. Now, moving to the eyelet chain, the other weird thing about this upper is this loop here on this eyelet, because it doesn't do anything. There is actually an eyelet right here. This is going through an eyelet in the upper. This is just cosmetic. It is running into power tape, which is kind of going all through this upper, but it doesn't do anything, and it just looks strange. And one last thing is this just garish nitro branding on the medial side of the shoe. Now, I'm fine with it because I realize that is Puma's sort of branding. They go for loud and garish. That's their branding. Fine, but that's just a weird design choice. But I realize it's across a lot of shoes this year. And the last thing I'm going to critique about this is there are somewhat stretchy laces on this. I wish we could get away from stretchy laces on performance shoes or just any running shoes in general. But I will say I am getting really good lockdown on this shoe. So the stretchy laces are not giving me issues, but you may need to really kind of fine tune the lacing of the shoe to get a good lockdown. So let's get to the ride of this shoe. And this is where things really fall down for me in this shoe. Now, when I do an initial impressions video, and technically, again, this is an initial impressions video, I try to get 30 to 50K into the shoe. Closer to 50K for like a road trainer like this, 30K is more for a trail shoe or a super shoe. And I got 30.7 kilometers in the shoe, or a little bit under 20 miles, and it was a struggle. I did 3 runs in this shoe. Now, if you're interested in this story, follow me on Strava because you would have seen this play out real time in my comments. So link them in the description to my Strava. And while you're doing that, follow me on Instagram because I do post sort of daily things and stories about things I'm running in, things I'm feeling. Definitely posted about this shoe as well. But anyway, the first run I went out in this shoe was a 12.5 kilometer run on a route that I run almost every day. And again, since I was coming into the shoe fresh, I've never run in a Deviate Nitro shoe before. I just wanted to go see what this shoe could do. So it was just an easy run. And if I felt like I'd pick it up, I'd pick it up. Went and did that run, was mostly easy, picked it up a little bit here and there, but fundamentally I got home and I was just kind of meh. Like I didn't really think much of the shoe. That's not so weird with the first run, especially of a new shoe, because again, I don't have any frame of reference, so that's fine. I didn't really think anything of it. But the next day I planned a workout so I could find where the real sweet spot of pace is for this shoe. Now, for a performance trainer like this, I expect it to work very well for a certain pace. I don't know what that pace is because I can't tell from Puma's marketing what they really say this shoe should be, other than a daily trainer you can do everything in, which it's not. But in that workout, I planned a 5 by 1K where I was going to do the first K at 4:14 per kilometer pace, which is my marathon pace, and then take 10 seconds off per kilometer. So by the fifth rep, I was going to be at 3:35 per kilometer, which is below my 5K pace. And I figured that would be going through the gears, and through that workout, I would figure out what pace this shoe is going to work really well at. So I got to where I'm going to do the reps. I line up to start the first rep. I get the first rep done at 4:14 per kilometer, which again is marathon pace. And I remember getting to the end of it and just thinking, that was a lot of work. That was more effort than it should have been. But, I hit the paces. It was fine. Came back, did the next rep at 4:05. And I remember getting to the end of that one thinking, wow, that was actually a lot of work, way more effort than I thought it would actually be. Lined up, did the next rep, which is at 3:55, got to the end of that rep, and I needed to sit down. I was so winded. I was just spent. Now, I've been running those paces in tons of other shoes recently. Metaspeed, Edge Paris, Takumi Sen 10, Vaporfly 3, a lot of other shoes. Absolutely no problem. I've been running much faster than that because I'm doing a lot of 5K work right now. So running at those paces in a shoe like this should not have been an issue. So after that 3:55 rep 3, sit down, figured I'm going to collect myself for a few minutes. After a few minutes, I forced myself to get up, and I realized I can't go do this next rep. So what I decided to do was just go for, a 1K jog, stretch the legs out, maybe loosen up a little bit, then I'll come back to the line and I'll knock out the last 2 reps. So I go jog 1K, really jog it slowly, get back to the line where I'm going to start the rep, get to the line, start my watch, take off. I make it about 20 meters and I stop. Like my body stops. It's like, no, we're not running in this shoe anymore. So I'm like, okay, go back to the line, line up again, start my watch, make it about 30 meters this time, and my body stops me from running. Like I cannot will myself to run in this shoe. And what ended up happening is I walked home 3.5K from that point, because where I was starting was the furthest point away from home in the workout I was doing. That's right. I walked home 3.5K rather than running because I could not will myself to run in this shoe. My body was rejecting this shoe. I was hating how this shoe felt so much. I couldn't actually run in this shoe. And I had a very unpleasant walk in over 90 degrees Fahrenheit or about 33 degrees Celsius weather with beating sundown on me. It was awful. And I got home and I just decided, I don't ever want to run in this shoe again. And I was actually even doubting whether I wanted to run ever again. That's how much this shoe really just sort of brutalized me. So the next day, I'm not going to run in this shoe. I go out for a short 6-kilometer jog in the Nike Pegasus 41. Yes, I love the Pegasus, but it wasn't about the Peg. It was literally any other shoe I could have put on. It was a great jog. Loved running in the shoe. Fell back in love with running again. Everything's fine there. So I decided the day after that, which will be my 3rd run in the shoe, to just go out with no expectations. Just run in this shoe in any pace that this shoe will let me run in. So I run back about 2.5, 3K to kind of where I really start my runs, because that first 2.5K is kind of on, I'm going through roads and intersections and all that stuff to get to sort of bike paths along the river. But anyway, on that 3rd run, I made it about the 2.5K to where the river trails start. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to take it easy. I'm going to jog easy, whatever it takes just to get some more time into the shoe to get myself over 30K. And I made it about another 1.5K or so, just really slow jogging, like 6 minutes per kilometer pace. And I was just like, no, I don't want to run in this shoe. I want to get this shoe off my foot as quickly as possible. So I kind of walked around a little bit. I jogged maybe another half a kilometer, maybe walked a little bit, ran like another half kilometer, almost a kilometer. And by that time, I was just like, no, no more. I'm done. I walked home 2.5K because I didn't want to run in the shoe. And in fact, I actually considered taking this shoe off and walking home barefoot because I wanted the shoe off my foot. And when I got home from that second 2.5 kilometer walk, I was just disgusted with this shoe. I literally wanted to throw it in the trash. But I took this shoe off, I went up and I got this shoe. I got the Velocity Nitro 3 and I put this on my foot and I just went out and ran about a kilometer in front of my house. Didn't even turn my watch on. I just wanted to see if I was insane. So running that kilometer or so in this shoe felt great. It felt like what I remember this shoe feeling like, how much I like this shoe, how much I like the foam in this shoe and the way this shoe works. And I realized I wasn't really crazy because this shoe actually worked fine, but this shoe is a total nightmare. So what is exactly the problem with this shoe? Why is this shoe not working for me? And I'm saying for me, but I also think this shoe's not going to work for most people. And I'm judging that on watching all of the other reviews about this shoe, because after that third run, I watched everything about this shoe that I could find because I wanted to know if I was actually crazy or not. And I would say the reviews for this shoe have been rather meh. They've been rather mixed. At best, some people have said it's okay. A lot of other people have said it's not very good, or it's not the Deviate Nitro 2. It's a downgrade from the 2. So this shoe's not working for me, and I suspect it's probably not going to work for a lot of people. And the other thing that I watched when I was trying to see how crazy I was about this shoe was all of the interviews and videos done interviewing Todd, who's the product line manager at Puma, talking about the tech of what they're working on for 2024. And that's where it hit me what the actual problem in this shoe is. Now, Puma's made a big deal about their foam upgrades for 2024, specifically for these two models, the Deviate Nitro Elite 3 and the Fast-R Nitro Elite 2. They have upgraded the Nitro Elite foam in these shoes to an aliphatic TPU. Now, it's a supercritical aliphatic TPU, and what an aliphatic TPU is a type of TPU that has some unique characteristics for manufacture and finish that really make it optimal for what Puma wants out of the foam. Also, Puma's talking a lot about how they're optimizing the cell matrix of the foam at the cellular level so they get the best foam, and they're using extrusions where they can cut and buff the part as opposed to using compression molding. All of that is in an emphasis to get the best possible foam. And that's what's in these two shoes. However, the Velocity Nitro 3 and the Deviate Nitro 3 both don't get that new fancy foam. The foams that are actually in both of these shoes are the traditional foams. So the Nitro Elite foam found in the Deviate Nitro 2 is actually last year's supercritical EVA PIVA blend. There is the supercritical TPEE foam found in the Nitro foam in both of these shoes. And the Velocity Nitro 3 actually has their standard EVA foam, which I believe they used to call Pro Foam, but I can't find that name anywhere anymore. But it's just their standard EVA. The Deviate Nitro 3 does not have that EVA foam. And it's those foam lamps that I think are actually causing the issue with how I'm responding to this shoe. Because the supercritical EVA PIVA Nitro Elite from last year feels like it's been tuned to be a little bit firmer. And what I'm finding with this foam, this Nitro Elite foam that's in this, the older Nitro Elite foam, is that it's very compliant, meaning it compresses. It's not a foam that I'm sinking into like Zoom X or something like that, but there's a lot of compression or a lot of compliance to this foam, but there's almost no energy return. There's no resiliency to the foam. There's no rebound from this foam. So when I'm striking on the ground, I'm just striking. I feel the compression. I feel the cushion of the foam, and that's it. I don't feel anything else. It doesn't feel like the Nitro Elite foam rebounds until I unweight it when I'm moving to the next foot strike. So this foam isn't doing anything for me. All it's doing is compressing, and that's a little problematic. I think that's where the soreness is coming on the lateral side for a lot of people, myself included. Additionally, since we have the Nitro, the supercritical TPE foam as a carrier foam under here, that's actually running into the problem that was really interesting, because in Ed Budd's review of this shoe, he said this shoe reminds him the most of older Zoomfly models. And I would agree with Ed here, because this actually reminds me of the Zoomfly 3 or 4 from Nike from years ago. And what reminds me so much is not a good thing. If you take React Foam from Nike and you just run in React Foam, it's okay. I liked it. A lot of people didn't like it, but it's okay. As soon as you put a carbon fiber plate in React Foam, it's a nightmare. It's way too rigid. And I think that's the same problem with Nitro Foam. As soon as you put a carbon plate with this much Nitro Foam, especially here in the forefoot, it just becomes way too rigid, because this shoe is now way too rigid. It's way more rigid than this shoe. And this shoe is a firm shoe, but I would say it's a cushion shoe. This shoe is just a overly rigid shoe that's very unfun to run in. Now, the other thing about this shoe is the carbon infused plate really isn't doing anything for me. It feels very stiff in the midfoot, very stiff in the heel, but I'm not really feeling anything in the forefoot. With a carbon infused plate, or any kind of plate, but especially a carbon infused plate, I'm expecting to feel that sort of plate pop off the toe. This shoe has none of it. And I think that problem is the fact that there's that forked plate here. There's a large fork here on the medial side. There's a smaller one on the lateral side. And that takes any sort of plate feel out of the forefoot of the shoe. So you're getting an overly rigid shoe in the midfoot and heel with none of the benefits of a plate in the forefoot, with a Nitro Elite foam that just compresses but has zero energy return or resiliency, with a very rigid foam under it that's acting like a carrier foam that just makes the entire package overly stiff, overly harsh to run in. And I've been talking about the forked carbon infused plate, and here you can see a picture of it. Now we're looking at it from the bottom, so you can see the bigger side on the medial and the smaller side on the lateral side. And there's a channel that runs through the middle of the plate, essentially. Now, if you look at the lower piece of foam in the Deviate Nitro 3, it's the Nitro foam. It's the supercritical TPE foam, which, as I've said many times, I think is engineered more for durability than it is anything else. So as you can see, there's a channel of Nitro foam that now runs through the middle of the foot, filling in the gap that the plate leaves for the fork. Now, that foam is a different density, obviously, than the carbon infused plate, but also both those materials are different densities than the Nitro Elite foam that I'm finding very compliant, very compressive above it. So when I'm compressing the Nitro Elite foam, what I think is actually happening is my foot on the lateral side is pushing into that ridge of nitro foam below it, and that's creating a pressure point. I think that's the pressure point that a lot of people are complaining about, hot spots on the lateral side of their foot. That is not great. That makes this shoe actually quite unpleasant to run in. And I will say that even a day or two after running in this shoe, the third run I did in it, the ball of my foot was actually quite sore still in that spot, right about where that ridge between the forks and the plate should be, that the nitro foam is pressing into the Nitro Elite foam. Overall, I'm a little soured on Puma Running right now. I'm 1 for 1. Again, I think the Velocity Nitro 3 is an exceptional shoe. I stand by everything I've said. I still think it's a great shoe. But the Deviate Nitro 3 is a complete miss for me. And like I've said, I think it's going to be a miss for a lot of other runners. So I'm a little leery of Puma's engineering and just Puma Running in general. Now, I was going to make a decision on whether I was going to cover the Deviate Nitro Elite 3 based on my experience with the Deviate Nitro 3. Obviously, it wasn't good, so I'm not going to cover the Deviate Nitro Elite 3. Yes, it's a new foam. Yes, it's their updated ATPU foam. But honestly, I don't trust Puma's engineering at this point that I'm going to go buy that shoe and have another horrible experience. The Fast R2 was a shoe I was never interested in. I don't like decoupled heels on shoes. I've spent a lot of time in Alphafly 1 and 2. I never want to go back to a decoupled heel. And a lot of other shoes in the Puma lineup I just wasn't interested in. But the trifecta of the Velocity Nitro to the Deviate Nitro to the Deviate Nitro Elite was a trifecta of trainer to racer that I was really excited about. But as of right now, I don't think I'll be covering any more Puma running shoes in 2024. I will keep an eye on what they're doing in 2025, but I'm a little leery and I'm a little worried for the Velocity Nitro 4 based on where they're shifting these foams. because I've also seen online from Puma employees that as of spring 2024, all Nitro Elite foams are moving to the ATPU foam, the new supercritical ATPU foam, and all Nitro foams are moving to the supercritical EVA PIBA blend foam. And if the Velocity Nitro 4 has the EVA PIBA blended foam in it, that's not going to be the same shoe. So I'm not interested in that either. But I'll keep an eye on the brand. I'll see what they do next year. Hopefully they change things up, but I don't have a lot of faith in Puma Running at this point in 2024. Thank you for making it to the end of the video. If you find this content useful, consider subscribing. You'll see more content from me pop up in your feed. If not, drop a like on this video because it helps this channel continue to grow, which I always appreciate. And with that, I'll catch you in the next one.